1. Hi there, I'm Amber Blackburn, and I am joined tonight by TIMMEH. Say hi.
Hello.
Hi. And we're going to see maybe others will join us, but we are doing 3Tales at 3 a.m. So the first tale that we're going to do is my favorite. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut the cool little video here, but I'm going to tell The Telltale Heart, which is my favorite classic tale by Edgar Allan Poe. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Hey, I'm getting an echo, Tim.
I don't know why.
Can you, mute yourself until I'm done?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Above all the sense of hearing acute, I heard all things in that heaven and earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthy, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how the idea first entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me, never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire, and I think it was his eye. It was. And had his eye of the vulture, a pale blue with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madman know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, and with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never so kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient enough for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see me how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. When the madman have thought to be so wise as this? And then when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously, oh, so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so that a single thin ray fell upon that vulture eye. And then I did for 7 long nights, every night at midnight. But I found the eye was always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I boldly went into the chamber and spoke courageously at him, calling him by the name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he passed the night. So you see he would have been a very profound old man indeed, to suspect that every night just at 12 I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night I was more than usually cautious in opening that door. A watch's minute hand moved more faster than I did. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my own sagacity. I don't know what that word is. And I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. And I think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he had not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with thick darkness, for the shutters were closed, fastened through the fear of robbers, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing on steadily, and I had my head in, and I was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped on the tin fastening, and the old man sprang out, crying, "Who's there?" I kept still and quiet and said nothing. For the whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lay down. He was sitting up in bed listening, just as I had done. Night after night, hearkening to the death watches the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan. I knew it was the groan of mortal terror, and it was not the groan of pain or grief. Oh no. It was a low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it was welled up in my own bosom, deafening with a dreadful echo, the terrors that distracted me. And I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and I pitied him. Although I chuckled at heart, I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, and when he had turned on the bed, his fears had been ever since growing upon him, and he had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with those suspicions, but he had found it all in vain, because death is approaching him, and had stalked with his black shadow before him, and enveloped the victim, and it was a mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head in the room. When I had waited long enough, very patiently, without hearing him lay down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until a length of a single dim ray, like a thread of the spider, shot out from the crevice, and I fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it in perfect distinctness, a dull blue with hideous veil over it, and that chilled the very marrow of my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for he had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon that damned spot. And have I not told you that was the mistake from madness, but over acuteness of my sense? Now I say, there come to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew the sound too well. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of the drum stimulates a soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steady I could maintain the ray upon the eye. But, yeah, the eye, that's a typo. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every minute. Do you mark me? Well, I have told you that I am nervous. So am I. And now, at the dead hour of night, amid the dreadful silence of the old house, to the strange noise, as this excited man, uncontrollable terror, yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder, and I thought the heart must burst. And now new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come, and with a loud yell I threw the lantern open and leaped into the room. He shrieked once, but only once. In an instant I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. For many minutes the heart beat on the muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, it was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it for many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think I'm mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut the head and the arms and the legs. And then I took up 3 planks in the flooring of the chamber and deposited them all between the scaffoldings. And then I removed the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatsoever. I had been too weary for all that. A tub had caught it all. When I made the end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bells sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I had to fear? 3 men entered who introduced themselves with perfect civility as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what did I have to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house, and I bade them search. Please search well. I led them at length to his chamber, and I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed, in enthusiasm of my confidence. I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of the perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot which held the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, while I answered cheerily. They chattered of familiar things, but ere long I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But they still sat and still chatted, the ringing becoming more indistinct. I continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness, until at length I found out what the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton, as I gasped for breath. And yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased, and I arose and argued with the truffles in a high key with a violent, I don't know that word, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not to be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observation of the men. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I waved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards. The noise arose over and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and the man chatted pleasantly and smiled. What was possibly they heard not? Almighty God, no, no. They heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think, but anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I bear those hypercritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark! Louder, louder, louder. Vans! I shrieked. Dismember no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here is the beating of his hideous heart. So that is one of my favorite Edgar Allan Poe poems or monologues.
Jesus wants a hug.
Hi, Renji.
Hi.
So, I just finished. Oh, Renji Stormcraft also has a awesome channel. We enjoy playing Cards Against Humanity on his channel, and I will leave his stuff in the description. So, did you find a story for us, Renji?
Currently looking through a few.
Welcome to the Nightmare Stream, boys and girls.
Alright, so Tim, do you want to do yours while Renji finds something?
You a whole book of scary ass fucking Japanese ghost stories. The one I was going to read because it's really, really long and I don't feel like reading that much.
Oh, pick one. And tell us what it is and who it's by.
Oh, I did find one.
Not sure who this is by.
Okay, so just picking up your sound.
I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. Japanese ghost stories, and the story is called Oshidori. It translates to Mandarin duck. Russian, Mandarin ducks. And a hunter named Sanjo who
do you want to read, Tim, or do you want me to read?
reading before you so rudely interrupted, my friend.
Okay. Boring.
A hunter named Sanjo who lived in the district called Go. Sorry if I'm butchering all the Japanese in this, all you Japanese. So, Mutsu, one day he went out hunting and could not find any game. But on his way home, a place called, how to pronounce that? He perceived a pair of swimming together, and they were crossed. To kill Oshidori is not good, but Sanjo happened to be very hungry, and he shot at the pair. While the female escaped into the rushes of the disappeared. Sanjo took the dead bird home and cooked it. The night he dreamed a dream, it seemed to him that a beautiful woman came into his room and stood by his pillow and began to weep. So bitterly did she weep that Sanjo felt as if his heart were being thrown out while he listened to him. Why, oh why did you kill him? Of what wrong was he guilty? Akun Nama, we were so happy together, and you killed him. He ever do you? Do you even know what you have done? Oh, do you know what cruel thing you have done? Two you have killed, for I will not live without my husband. This I came. Then again she wept so bitterly that the voice of her crying pierced into the marrow of the listener's bones. Sobbed out the words to this poem. He Ru Iba Shi Wano Numa no Komo no Kuri no Izuuki, which translates to, at the morning of twilight I invited him to return with me. In the shadow of the rushes, Akanuma, ah, what unspeakable. After these verses, she exclaimed, "Oh, you cannot, no, you cannot know what you have done. Tomorrow, when you go to Akanuma, see." So saying and weeping, she went away. When Sanjo awoke in the morning, This dream remained so vivid in his mind, greatly troubled, and remembered the words. But tomorrow, when you go to see, you will see. He resolved to go there at once, that he might learn whether his dream was anything more than a dream. Akanuma and came to the river bank. He saw the female Oshidori. In the same moment, the bird perceived, but instead of trying to escape, she swam straight towards him, looking at him in a strange, fixed way. Then, with her beak, she suddenly tore open her own body and died before the hunter's eyes. Head and became a priest.
That's not creepy.
You it was going to be creepy and fucked up. The other one was even worse.
Oh, I got one a little bit.
Way too long to read.
Right. Renji, did you find one?
Yeah.
Okay. What is it and who is it by?
It's just 10 creepy stories. It's Footprints in the Snow by just someone who wrote it wild and wonderful.
Okay.
This happened to me about 10 years ago while I was attending college at West Virginia University. At the time, I was really into backcountry camping, which for reasons that will become obvious, I am not into anymore. But one of the benefits, actually probably the only benefit, of attending college in West Virginia was the easy access to many beautiful and remote wilderness areas. Just south of the college was this vast area of mountains and forests called Monongahela. Whatever. I'm sorry if I butchered it. National Forest.
Hey, don't feel bad. I was butchering Japanese.
Yeah, but that was Japanese. This is English I'm butchering. This region is
probably Native American, actually.
This region is so remote that the government had set up a huge telescope in the region due to how dark it is because of the lack of human population. Anyway, this particular backcountry trip occurred during the Thanksgiving break in classes. I had decided to stay in town and not head home for Thanksgiving that year in college, and a college buddy of mine, who I would often go on camping trips with, also ended up stranded in town. We had decided to use the break to go on a 3-day trip down to a region of West Virginia that I had always wanted to explore, but had not had the opportunity to do so before due to it being a little further away than we would usually go. This region, known as Cranberry Wilderness, had been talked about as being about as remote as one could get in any area east of the Mississippi. There were also lots of stories about campers, hikers, and fishermen going into the Cranberry Wilderness and never coming out, with no traces of them ever being found. There was another story that I remember about a plane crash in that area, with the plane being found, but no trace of the 3 passengers, alive or dead, ever turning up. I would be lying if I said that this little bit of local lore didn't make the idea of the trip even more exciting. At the same time, I thought a lot of these stories were apocryphal, whatever, or could easily be explained. As the trip drew nearer, the weather forecast kept getting worse. It had been a very mild autumn up to that time, but the forest looked like it was calling for ice and snow up in the mountains. Eventually, my buddy dropped out because of the forecast. Foolishly and stubbornly, I decided that I would go on my own. I had done a few solo trips before, and at the time, this didn't really bother me. My plan for the trip was to do about a 10-mile hike on the first day, and then camp, do about another 10-mile hike on the second day, and then camp, and hike about 5 miles back to my car on the third day. The first day of my trip was rather uneven. In line with its reputation, I did not see another person. The only eerie thing that happened was at night I heard coyotes howling in the surrounding ridges, which is never a comforting sound when camping alone. On the second day of my hike, nothing went as planned. The trail that I was hiking on was much more rugged than I expected. At one point, I was supposed to turn on a connector trail to get to my second campsite, but this trail, which was on my map, was simply non-existent. This led me to having to take a much more circuitous route and adding about 5 miles into the hike again. Like the first day, I did not see another person. I reached my camp area for the second day, and I honestly named Hell for a Certain Branch. Just as it was starting to get dark, the temperature had been dropping all day as well. And as soon as I was able to get my camp set up and my fire started, it had started to snow. When backcountry camping, I used to use a camping hammock that had been modified for winter camping, but I find it much more comfortable and lighter to carry than a tent. You can't help feel, though, that when you're in a hammock, which, unlike a regular hammock, surrounds you completely with material, and a rain fly, that you're just hanging barefoot. Exhausted from my extended hike and wanting to get out of the snow, I climbed into my hammock, and as the last night of the day left, I drifted off to sleep. I slept like the dead until 2 in the morning when this loud noise jolted me awake. Confused and not know how it happened, I turned on my flashlight to look out of the small mesh openings in my hammock. I could tell by looking at the ground that it had snowed about an inch overnight, but I couldn't see more than 2 feet away from my hammock because the thick white fog had descended upon the forest. I was thinking that maybe I had just had a bad dream when I heard the indescribable unworldly howl. I couldn't place where it was coming from, as it seemed to be coming from all around me. At this point, I was scared shitless and lay in my sleeping bag in my hammock, paralyzed and not knowing what to do. I listened intently, but the woods around me were completely silent after the howl. I could not hear anything moving. I didn't hear that howl again. I lay there probably for about 3 hours, not knowing what to do, and sure that I would get lost and never be found if I ran off into the thick fog. At around 5 a.m., I finally got up enough bravery to get out of the hammock after lying there for past 3 hours. I had finally rationalized that howl as some form of sleep paralysis. I had experienced sleep paralysis before, where you wake up but are still dreaming and cannot move and have weird auditory and visual perceptions. It seemed that the fog had started to dissipate a little bit. My first order of business was to take a piss that I had been holding for the past 3 hours with my headlamp on, and my handheld flashlight and lightweight hatchet in hand. I crept away from the hammock into the nearby strand of trees. I shined my lights ahead and could now see out about 20 feet and saw nothing amiss. More confident now that my experience could indeed be chalked up to sleep paralysis, I relaxed and began to empty my bladder. I then noticed that my stream was landing into an indentation in the snow. Examining the indentation closer, I noticed that it looked like a footprint from a bare human foot. I quickly zipped up and started examining the snow all around my hammock much closer. All around, I noticed hundreds of footprints and what looked like human handprints in the snow. Needless to say, I freaked out and without packing up the hammock, started running the last 5 miles to my car. I hadn't told many people this story for fear that they will think that I'm crazy. At the same time, I've tried to rationalize the whole thing and say that maybe it was just sleep paralysis and that my clearly agitated mind hallucinated the foot and hand prints and that maybe there were just coyote prints. But I can tell you for sure that I have not been camping, whether alone or with a group, since that day, and do not ever plan to go camping again. Okay then. That's the end of that one.
That was awesome.
What's that? What's that?
That's scary pictures. It's hard to go to bed, honey.
Sounds like some shit that's happened to me before.
Right? Okay. I have like pictures up that are freaking my daughter up. So thank you for joining us. Again, please check out Renji's Stormcraft's channel. I will have his link in the description. If you'd like to join us for either creepypasta or for Cards Against Humanity, my Discord is also my Discord. See what's on my mind?
You are threatening my Discord.
Discord is also in the description, so you can join us in our shenanigans. But please please tune in for next week on 3Tales at 3 a.m. Okay, guys, say bye.
See ya.
Totals.
Bye. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you had as much fun watching as I did recording it. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, which is all down there and right there, to see more hilarious videos. And also, if you haven't already, check out Razori's Stormcraft's channel for some awesome gaming, including Cards Against Humanity. And if you want to play with us, scroll down to the description and add me on Discord, and maybe you can play Cards Against Humanity with us. So see you tomorrow later. Thanks. Bye.